Elizabeth, just to confirm, we are now recording. Is that correct?
Correct.
Great, thank you. I call this meeting to order for the CTE and Workforce Development Study Committee. We are joined by currently board members Rob Eby, some others may join us in time, and also colleagues from both the state board as well as the Department of Education. And we have a few distinguished guests who we're going to introduce here in a few minutes. A couple housekeeping reminders. This is a 90-minute meeting. We have started on time. We're going to end on time at that 90-minute mark. We're also going to make sure that we preserve this as an open forum discussion. So we're not going to follow Robert's Rules of Order or similar. We're just going to have an open discussion for educational purposes. But we are going to try to stay disciplined in the topics that we do discuss. Two more things. One is the nature of this study committee. It was formed and serves at the discretion of the board chair, Lillian Hartgrove. The study committee was formed for information and gathering purposes only, and it does not have any governance authority. That's reserved for the board at large. And then also our statement of purpose. This study committee's purpose is to research and develop opportunities to advance Tennessee's K through 12 students as those students progress through the stages of planning, preparation, and pursuit of their career aspirations. Our emphasis is on helping students find success in life, not only in the classroom. So with that, I'm going to hand this over to our Deputy Executive Director of Policy and Research, Michael Durline, who's done a wonderful job putting together this agenda and herding the cats necessary to get us here today. So Michael, please take it from here.
Thank you. I'm Michael Durline, the Deputy Executive Director for Policy and Research at the State Board. Happy to be here. We do have a packed agenda. I think the unofficial theme of this meeting will be partnerships. So we'll hear from Collierville Schools and their partners in education, industry partners there. We'll also hear from Tipton County Schools and TCAT Northwest. So we're thankful you all were able to join us today. And I'm not going to go through and introduce everyone, but if you wouldn't mind, when it is your turn to speak, if you could kind of introduce yourself and give just a little bit of information about who you are and kind of where you sit within your organization, that would be helpful. Before we dive into those discussions, and I also want to note that the intent there is to hear from our partners across the state and then also have time for an open question and answer discussion type forum, because I know our board members that are joining us will likely have some questions for you. And, you know, it's more of an informal setting, so please feel free to make it more conversational. Before we dive into that, I did want to go over just a few relevant policy updates of the moment. So a few things that have transpired with the board that I think are very relevant to this conversation. One is industry professional partnerships language. So just in October, the state board drafted some language that was then presented by the Department of Education to really encourage expansion and depth of partnerships between school districts and regional industry partners. The language here comes directly from the high school policy, and it highlights a few areas where we saw some opportunity for industry partners to engage directly in schools and districts across the state. So everything from direct engagement in the classroom alongside of teacher of record, serving as a mentor, to hosting industry tours, walkabouts, and job shadowing opportunities. So this is some language that was proposed on first reading, as I mentioned, back in October. And really, we wanted to take a holistic look at the ways in which districts could engage with industry and codify some of that language in policy. We would encourage you all to review the language, and I'll make sure everybody has the link to the revisions following this meeting, because there is more than just this language that's posted here. And if you have feedback on it or any suggestions that you'd like to offer, please share that with us. There are always 2 readings of policies, and so this will go before the board again in February. So there is right now an opportunity to make any revisions, or if you have recommendations on how to build this out and make it stronger, we would love to hear that. In addition, and hopefully you've heard about this one, the Industry 4.0 Diploma Distinction is now codified in rule, though it hasn't gone through the full promulgation process. It has gone to the board for 2 readings, and that follows Public Chapter 946 of the Public Acts of 2022. So this is a diploma distinction, so it's not a new diploma type, but yet a distinction that can be included on a diploma that really emphasizes engagement in work-based learning. So this law will be effective in the 2022-23 school year and thereafter, and it directed the state board to establish rules to support this public chapter. During the July and October meetings, the board passed rule revisions that supported the Industry 4.0 diploma distinction. And during the October meeting, the department brought additional revisions to provide some clarity around work-based learning credits. So just to make sure we're all on the same page here, this is what the highlights of what is expected of a student pursuing an Industry 4.0 diploma distinction. So they are required to notify the counselor or school principal of their intent to pursue the distinction before the end of the 10th grade year. They must enroll in at least one work-based learning or dual enrollment course for the 11th and 12th grade years. They must register with a regional American Job Center or other career counseling partner and engage monthly with a career coach. And they must complete at least 9 credits of work-based learning or dual enrollment credits prior to graduation. So this is only emphasizing the importance of partnerships between districts and industry leaders across the state and supporting students who are seeking this type of diploma distinction. I'd be happy to take any questions on this or if there's any discussion before we dive in, because at this point we could turn it over to our folks in Collierville to introduce themselves, but the chair has any questions or comments you'd like to make?
Thank you, Michael. Just one brief comment regarding the industry partnerships that you opened with. Part of the objective, as you'll recall, was to bring clarity to a number of the different elements and opportunities that some of which are already in practice, but there was some ambiguity and there were concerns that we'd received from some superintendents about quote unquote gray areas. And part of the objective was to clarify where those opportunities exist and to give them full freedom to operate within those bounds. The second thing is to also emphasize to private employers that that their participation is not only invited, but it's really needed, and to again provide clarity around not just how they might participate, but also the fact that they're invited to offer employment opportunities post-graduation, but employment opportunities to those students that they might engage with. So I'm excited to see that get through second reading in February, but I have no further comments on that. Anyone else before we move on? Okay, great. Michael, you want to go ahead and usher in the next topic?
All right, again, we are super excited to have the folks from Collierville Schools, and let's see, do we have Cassie on? I just want to make sure before yes, we do, fantastic. And Collierville Partners in Education. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you all. And again, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself before you get started, and I can control the slides. So I will do my best to kind of use my judgment in moving forward, but if I'm struggling at all, just let me know and tell me to go forward or backward. But I'm going to turn it over, I guess, to Brett.
Yeah, thanks, Michael. First off, I want to thank everybody for allowing us the opportunity to come and speak to the board today. We're very proud of the work we've done in building relationships with our industry partners over the last few years. So excited to kind of show you some of the things we've done and some of the things that have worked well for us in our district, and some of the things that we're working on for the future as well, based on some of the relationships we've built over the last few years. So my name is Brett Heinrich. I'm the Career and Technical Education Supervisor for Collierville Schools. Background before that was a teacher in Legacy Shelby County Schools for 7 years, came over to Collierville Schools in 2015 as an assistant principal at the high school. And now this is my 4th year as Career and Technical Education Director / Supervisor. So I'll hand it over to Cassie.
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Cassie Foote. I am the Executive Director of Partners in Education. We're based out here in Collierville. Thank you for having us. I'm excited to be here. I was formerly with the Tennessee Business Roundtable in Nashville, did a lot of work there with workforce development and education. So it's nice to be kind of on the ground doing the work that I only talked about in theory in Nashville for a long time. So I'm happy to be here and happy to be talking to you all about this with Brett.
All right, so this is, again, just kind of a high-level view of some of the things that Cassie and I have worked on over the last few years in our district, but we'll do just a quick preview of some of the programs that we have in Collierville Schools related to CTE, since that's my area of expertise. So we'll review that briefly, and then Cassie will go into kind of PI and what they do in their mission, and how they've really helped support our district, and how they're also working to support some other districts in our area in the greater Memphis area as well. And then we will lastly kind of go through some of the things that we've done over the last few years to engage industry partners on a very regular basis in our district. So the best way I could kind of summarize kind of what we're doing in Collierville Schools as it relates to CTE is we have a brochure that we put out every year that we update based on the different programs that we offer. The main thing for the purposes of to be respectful of time and other presenters here is to kind of look at the quick facts for our CTE in the upper left-hand corner of that brochure. Right now, we have 34 dual enrollment courses under the CTE umbrella at Collierville High School, and this is specific to the high school as well. So we have currently 19 programs of study that covers 12 of the 16 career clusters that are recognized. We also have statewide dual credit courses we started offering last year, expanded it this year. One advanced placement course, one honors course, and then one CLEP-aligned course as well. So we can go to the next slide. So you can kind of see here some pictures of what we have. Some of our, what you would call the shiny programs that we have that catch everybody's attention are kind of pictured here. We've got a full automotive program, dual enrollment with TCAP Memphis. We have a full culinary program through the Kimmons Wilson School, U of M, with a full residential and commercial kitchen on our campus. We also have a welding program aligned TCAP Memphis, building construction trades, TCAP Memphis, and then a large STEM program that's been going on for quite some time. You can see our partners over here on the left. U of M, a big partner with us. UT Martin for vet and animal science, not pictured here, but we do have a vet animal science program, dual enrollment through UT Martin. We also have multiple partners for TCAP. We partner with TCAP Memphis for most of our CTE programs, but we also partner with Ms. Jones and TCAP Covington for our digital agronomy program that's really grown over the last couple of years. Our second year offering that class, and students have really taken to it. The tech pieces that are going into ag are really catching a lot of the attention of students now. So we're excited about where that program is going. So that's just a quick overview of what we're doing in Collierville Schools and CTE. And then at the very end, we'll kind of talk about some new programs we're offering and some of the new ones we had this year as well. We can go to the next slide. So Cassie, you want to take over here?
Sure. Yeah, so again, I'm Cassie with Partners in Education. You can see here on the slide, this is what we're focused on, developing skills, connecting with the industry and the business community to the district, and just ultimately preparing students. I'm going to talk a little bit about kind of the evolution, I guess, of PI. I'm not going to go too much into it because it's really talking about those events that Brett is going to cover after me, but I'll just give you kind of an idea of where this started. So you go to the next slide. Okay, this really simplified version started within the Collierville Chamber when they were looking to build the new high school. The main focus was really raising money so students in the high school would be able to have workplace experiences on campus and not have to leave. So like Brett said, full automotive bays. They've got the welding, what are they called? Welding stalls in there. Yep. A full commercial kitchen. There's anything you could want is actually on campus, so students don't have to go out into the workforce to get some of these experiences. We want them to do that. We're looking to make that happen, but wanted to make sure for any students that might not have transportation or ability to get out into the workforce that they could get those experiences on campus as well. So once the school was built, there was an opportunity for the folks in PI to kind of pat themselves on the back and move on. But the board really looked around and said, you know what, let's not, call it quits now. They wanted to reevaluate and refocus, and they decided just really focusing on workforce and developing students was what they wanted to do. And that was about the time that I came in. So a couple years ago, started working with Brett. First step was to bring businesses into the school. The first thing, we just needed them to start talking to teachers. We just wanted them to come in, start having conversations, meet each other, be in the same room, shake hands, share their information so they'd be able to reach out without us when they needed to. So we brought everyone in, and again, Brett will go into a little more detail, but brought everyone in for a large meeting to meet with teachers. And the big outcome from that was, I think, over 70% of the business folks who came in had never had that kind of communication with an educator before. And so that was our big kind of aha moment. We hear a lot from folks that, oh, we're just really not getting the talent we need, but they're also not communicating their needs to the schools. And so that was our first big hurdle. And also bringing in industries that hadn't been to the school, had never visited, didn't know. I mean, I spoke to someone who needed welders, didn't even know there was a welding program in the high school at Collierville. So it was really just trying to make those connections and fill in that info that some people just didn't have. I had about 2 days where I literally drove around Collierville and popped into businesses and said, hey, is there a manager around that I could talk to? And just said, hey, we're having this event, please come meet some teachers. And so we really, I think, made some strides. We have our loyal guys who are always there, who always support, but we really wanted to get more into the community and reach those folks that maybe didn't have a student that went through public education in Collierville and really didn't have those former connections to it, and wanted to expand that base. So our next step was bringing business into the classroom. We wanted them to come in, talk to students, do demonstrations, talk about where they could get internships, all that. We moved into recently bringing teachers out into businesses, recently had a teacher externship day that was really fantastic. Actually, there's been 2 in the last few months. So getting teachers into the businesses to see what's happening day to day, they can bring those experiences back to the classroom. And right now we're kind of at the point where we've done so much work in Collierville the last few years, and we've really, I think, made a really great kind of model for how this is working and how we're bringing business and industry together, that now we've had other districts interested in doing the same kind of work. So we've creating a coalition of districts that can come together and look at workforce solutions from a K through 12 level, kind of K through 12 district led, which is something that I haven't really seen happen very much before, as far as multiple districts coming and saying, how can we have more of a voice at the table of workforce development, and how can we be proactive and reach out and make sure that these things are happening and prepare these students. So it's been really exciting. I won't say too much more because I know Brett has some great slides and wants to get into it, but I'm here for sure to add anything in as Brett talks, and answer any questions that anyone might have. So actually,
next slide. Oh.
I have one more thing I want to say. This work can't happen without great partners like Brett, like Dr. Lilly, like Leanne. I've had folks who work in workforce across the state talk to me and ask if they could clone Roger Jones, our high school principal, because this doesn't happen everywhere, where you have leadership at the district level and in the schools that say, please come in, partner with us. So I just did want to highlight that and say thank you to Brett and everyone else from Collierville who's on the call, because it's been really fantastic, and it's really great to work with folks on the education side and on the industry side that see the importance of this. So that's all. Go for it, Brett.
Thank you, Cassie. So, yeah, what I'm going to do here is just kind of show you some pictures. Hopefully they're pretty easy to see. I can see them pretty well on my end. Hopefully you guys can see them too, but just kind of go through some of the events, and really kind of follows the timeline that Cassie was just talking about, and kind of where we started, which was from basically ground zero to having something that happens on a very regular basis, almost on a daily basis. At our middle and our high school, at our middle schools and our high schools. So really where this all started was with what Cassie mentioned too, about around the time she came in is when we started brainstorming these ideas to bring industry partners on campus in kind of a big way to engage in conversations with teachers, just so that they can get acclimated to one another, and know who each other are and have points of contact. And that was the same time I came in. So Cassie and I we started this thing together, which is a unique situation because we were able to kind of both build it as we went. It wasn't one of us trying to tell the other how things have been done. We kind of got to build this thing as we went through it together. So I think it was April of 2021 when we first had this PI kickoff event. It wasn't dubbed the kickoff event at the time because it was at the end of the school year, and COVID kind of changed our plans, as it did with everybody else, for the 1920 school year. But in April of 21, we had our first meeting where we brought everybody on campus from local industries, and we had them partnered and seated at tables based on career clusters and programs of study. So if you were an ag teacher, you would walk into the cafeteria, and obviously there was some planning ahead of time, so this wasn't a surprise or anything like that. But we would have an ag table, so they would go and sit at that ag table. Then industry partners would come in, and they'd say, "Okay, well, I'm an ag industry partner. I'm going to go sit at that ag table with the other ag teachers." And so that we replicated that for all of the other career clusters, and that's really where the whole thing started. We spent it was a half day, a morning, where they were just in the cafeteria. You can see here, I'm not sure if this is from April or from a different meeting we did, but same format, where industry partners aligned to those programs of study were seated with those teachers, and they engaged in conversations about just very simple, how to get involved, how can I get into the classroom, and get in front of students and talk to them about the actual work that's being done in these businesses, and how what's happening at the school level translates into a successful high wage in demand job for them after they graduate. So that's really where it started. And then we also did another one in July of that year, which is where it became a kickoff meeting. And then like Cassie referenced the survey that we did. We do surveys. People get mad at us because we do so many surveys, but we send surveys out all the time to our teachers, to industry partners. And the big survey, the big data point that we got back from that survey is that had never happened before. But another data point that we got from that same survey was that a lot of our industry partners wanted more time with specific teachers in their classrooms. And so we had another meeting in July using that feedback, where we didn't spend the entire time at those tables in the cafeteria. We cut it in half, and then we let those industry partners go and meet with teachers in their classrooms. And then from there, they actually scheduled time during the summer to have workforce meetings with them, where I gave them professional development hours for them to be able to take time out of their summer, which we have required professional development time that all of our teachers have to get, made it available for that. And a lot of our teachers were able to schedule time with partners a couple of days during the summer. They would come up to the school and just spend time talking with them about their business, how to get involved for the upcoming school year. And that's really where this PI meeting, this annual PI meeting, really became what it is now, which is a kickoff meeting to every school year. So what you're probably looking at, I think this is from this past summer, we had our annual kickoff meeting in July. We do it during in-service, typically at the end of that first week of in-service, to get all of our industry people back on campus and to get them in front of teachers, introduce new teachers if we have anybody in that particular, in CTE, we introduce them there. Also want to mention too, back in April, it was just our high school that was participating. But what you're looking at here is the entire CTE, or the entire district's CTE teachers. That includes elementary STEM, middle school STEM, and also obviously our high school CTE teachers are involved. Similar format, kind of go through kind of a debrief of what CTE is for anybody new. But also, we're trying to, she and I were trying to get creative about how can we make this type of event appealing to all of those partners who have been with us from the beginning. And so each year we look at something that we can highlight as, an initiative that we're going for within CTE for that upcoming school year. And in this case, it was externships, which we'll talk about here in just a minute. So that was kind of the big focus of this meeting. And on the right, you can kind of see what it looks like after the big meeting in the cafeteria. Partners on kind of a rotation schedule, will kind of like an open house kind of deal. They'll go to different teachers' classrooms that they want to visit with. You're looking at our health science teachers. We're all in our nursing services lab, and you can see all the industry partners engaging with our teachers there. And then on the bottom, I believe that's Dr. Lilly, maybe Miss Rainey as well, superintendent, chief academic officer, kind of looking at our STEM sessions that were taking place on that day as well. So that's the PI kickoff meeting that we do each year, and kind of how it went from the first meeting in April of 21 to now, and how we're doing it now. And it's been really successful. And we're really excited about continuing to do that, maybe on a bigger scale, which I think Cassie might talk about here at the end. But we can go to the next slide. All right, so some of the formatting is off here because I built this in Canva and had to download it as a PowerPoint and send it. So I apologize for the formatting. But we actually just finished up our career days last week. But each year we schedule time with our industry partners to come into our middle schools and meet with our 8th grade students ahead of them choosing their courses for 9th grade and developing their 4-year plans. So this kind of evolved. This was happening on kind of a smaller scale. When I came into this role in the district, COVID kind of put it on hold for a little bit. But as of last year, this is our plan to do this every year. But what we have, just to kind of take you through a quick timeline, by law, our students have to do an aptitude and interest survey in either 7th or 8th grade, and again in 9th. So our students will do theirs in 8th grade. They take these aptitude and interest surveys in August, and then those surveys spit out recommended careers. Those recommended careers, what they do is they look at their recommended careers, and then they look at all the different programs that we have available at the high school. And what they do is they look at all the industry partners that are aligned to those programs that have agreed to attend the career days, and they choose the sessions that they want to attend on their career day based on their recommended careers from their aptitude and interest surveys. So in theory, when we hold these events, students are hearing from industry partners that are related to a field that they have both an aptitude and interest in, that also happens to be aligned to programs we have available at Collierville High School. So all of this is vertically aligned and intentional. It's not just a, hey, come learn about what businesses are in Collierville or what businesses are in Greater Memphis. It is about, hey, this is a true pathway that is available to you starting next year, and these are the jobs that pathway can lead to, and it's right here in the Memphis area. So it's a very intentional thing that we do. Usually start off with an introduction into CTE. Anybody that's on the call that is in the CTE world knows that awareness is half the battle. Letting parents in the community know what options are out there and that these pathways exist and are pathways to be successful for a full career for students. So awareness is half the battle. So really, this is a great opportunity to get in front of every 8th grade student in our district, tell them what CTE is, show them what it is. There's a presentation and a video. I work with our AV department at the high school to create a video each year that shows students doing work in CTE classrooms that from that specific school year. So they're not looking at video from 5 years ago or 6 years ago. They're looking at what's actually happening that current school year in CTE classrooms. So I give them some handouts. They get a brochure. They get some other information about CTE, and then they're encouraged to take it home to their parents. Then they go and visit all the partners on a rotation schedule, and they get to visit with 4 different partners that day, and it's about a half day. We have 2 middle schools. What you're looking at here is middle school. I think these are both middle schools are represented here, but West Collierville Middle School and Collierville Middle School are the 2 schools that participate in the career day. Like I said, we just did it last week. It was a big success. We sent a bunch of surveys out. We're getting that data back pretty quickly. And it's always interesting to see which sessions were the most popular. And what remains true every year is criminal justice is by far the most popular session. Kids love criminal justice. And actually the results from previous career days are why we have a criminal justice program, because we did not have one previously. And we actually added one last year, and we already added another teacher to that program as well. So career day is also something that we do to help bring in industry partners and get them involved in front of our kids. Just more pictures of career day. We had the fire department come out this year. They actually stepped their game up. They were not happy that they were not one of the more popular sessions last year, so they created an obstacle course for our kids, and it was a really kind of an exciting thing for them. And then we alternate the days that we do this. So Tuesday was Collierville Middle School, but by the time Thursday rolled around for West, all the kids had already known that this was a little bit different than last year. So it was one of the more popular sessions this year. Logistics, obviously big in the Memphis area. So we had a local logistics company come out and show off the trucks that they have, and then also our FedEx technicians. These are the guys who repair the conveyor systems that are in the warehouses that get packages from plane or boat to warehouse to truck. So we have them bring their machine on campus and they do a repair, kind of a contest with them. The machine breaks, students have to get in pairs to repair it. And then it's one of the more engaging sessions that we have on campus. We can go to the next slide. All right, obviously guest speaker events. These are some guest speaker events that happened both last year and this year. So in the upper left-hand corner, we were one of the recipients of the Innovative High School Models Grant. And with that, we started 2 aviation programs, one for flight and one for aviation maintenance. So the one that you're looking at on the left is from this year. And it is Mountain Air Cargo came and spoke to our aircraft maintenance students, which again is aligned to TCAP Memphis. So these are dual enrollment TCAP Memphis students. And they donated, don't know the name of the specific window, but a window to a plane they donated to the class. So, and that thing is super heavy. I was actually over there today doing a meeting and tried to pick that up, and it was a mistake. I should not have tried to pick that up. So extremely heavy. On the right, you're looking at a representative from Baptist Hospital. You may have seen the same lady in other pictures because she is very involved. She comes to meet with all of our students each year. And specifically what you're seeing here is she's delivering an orientation before our nursing services students who can sit for their CNA certification this spring. These are the seniors. They're about to start their clinical rotations at some local long-term care facilities, and she's doing the orientation on our campus. So she's coming to tell them, what they can expect once they start here in a couple weeks. So the Baptist Hospital has been a great partner. And at the bottom, this is an example of a lot of times what we'll get is we'll have a local business or company, or in this case, a national organization reach out and say, hey, we've heard about some of the great stuff y'all are doing. We'd love to come and speak to your kids. So what you're looking at here, and you guys may be familiar, this is Upsmith. They came and spoke to a lot of our students from specific programs last year. So we brought them all into our, we have a community, what we call a community room, which is kind of theater style seating. And if they have an opportunity that our kids would benefit from, we try to facilitate that by giving them the forum to do that. So our teachers brought, I think you're looking at some of our automotive students, some of our welding students and construction students all came to the community room to hear what options they had to offer them. So, and these are all seniors as well. So we'll do things like that also. Just seeing some other examples of guest speakers. So on the top left, that's another example of an internship organization. These guys right here on the left, that's our welding class. This is the local steam fitters union. And so they're coming and talking to students about apprenticeships and what options they have for them. And so again, they reach out and say, hey, we want to come talk. We say, absolutely, we'd love to have you come talk to our students. So we are open arms anytime somebody wants to provide opportunities to our kids. In the upper right-hand corner, that's our chief of police speaking to our criminal justice club. As I said, very, very popular. Also the largest club that we have on campus outside of, I think, a volleyball club, but in terms of related to academics, our largest club on campus. So that's Chief Dale Lane speaking to our criminal justice club, coming on campus, taking time out of his day to do that. And then on the bottom is our culinary class, kind of hard to see, but this is our local Chick-fil-A coming and speaking to our U of M dual enrollment culinary students, talking to them not just about, the food aspect of the restaurant business, but also the hospitality aspect. And so they went through a great presentation with them just about the entirety of the business, how it works, what happens if this, and just trying to give them a more holistic view of what it means to be in that particular career field. So we can go to the next one. All right, so kind of alluded to this, but one, like I said, the mission that we had this year for our industry partners in our Big Pie kickoff event was externships. So I felt like the last few years, we've done a lot of asking businesses to come on our campus and, hey, what can you do for us? But we also wanted to kind of repay that by saying, you know what, instead of us asking you to come on campus, you guys have been doing that and we appreciate it. We want to continue doing that. But we also think that our teachers would benefit from coming to see what you guys do every day, seeing your campuses. So we actually had to get a little creative, but what we did is we had multiple days built into the school year where our teacher, it's a PD day or it's an in-service day or something like that. So I worked with our academic officer, our other district admin to see if we could, instead of our teachers, being on campus, getting PD on campus, if they could use that PD time to go into local businesses that are aligned to their programs and learn what's happening in those businesses in world and how things may have changed since they were on the industry side of things. So on the 27th of September was our first PD day, and what we did is we had a bunch of different people go to different places, but one of the bigger companies that hosted a lot of our teachers on the upper right-hand corner is IMC Companies. They just recently moved to Collierville and moved their headquarters out here off Schilling Farms, and so we asked that they be willing to host some of our career exploration teachers, our logistics teachers, and they were more than happy to do that and spend a full day hosting them. And what they did is very similar to what we're going to talk about with FedEx. What they did is they did kind of a morning debrief, kind of an overview of the company and what they do, and then they broke out into smaller career clustered sessions, breakout sessions that align specifically to what those teachers taught in the class every day. So followed that model recently on election day. Was a PD day for us. Obviously, if teachers needed to go and vote, they were allowed to do that. But we had PD time scheduled for them with FedEx. They were our big hosts for that. So very similar format. They went to the FedEx World headquarters, which is not far from Collierville, just down Winchester. And they spent the morning kind of hearing about FedEx Express specifically. There are a lot of different divisions of FedEx, and so this is specific to Express. And then they broke off into career clustered breakout sessions in the afternoon after lunch. But they hosted our teachers. They gave them a lot of good information. They gave them some goodies on the way out. We were allowed to take pictures, and then they could bring all of that back into the classroom and tell their students, what they can expect in the real world and how what they're teaching them aligns to what's actually happening in local businesses in the greater Memphis area. Some other places that our teachers went, you can see our health science teachers went to Baptist Hospital. Great partner, like I said earlier. We also had local mom and pop restaurant host our culinary teacher, Booyahs. They were a great host. We also had for our automotive teacher, they went to Wolf Chase Nissan, Honda, and then also Jaguar. So we got to see a bunch of different industry representatives in different vehicles than he otherwise might have seen. So, and then also Agri Center hosted all of our ag teachers back on the election day PD day. So they have an awesome greenhouse that's fully automated, that's state of the art. And so they were, both our middle school and our high school ag teachers were able to go and kind of see that really for the first time since COVID. We had tried to see it over the summer, Cassie and I did, but we were told they still weren't letting anybody in. So they were one of the first ones to actually get in there and see what was going on. So yeah, you can kind of see some of that's happening on the right. And then Booyah's mentioned that. And then you're also looking at our flight lab at the high school. So we actually use this time to allow our teachers, our flight teachers are sitting kind of on the bottom of the screen. And then the white shirt is a representative from Redbird Flight, which is where we bought the simulators. So what he did is we actually used that time for them to get additional training on how to use the simulators. So again, leveraging that time with partners, both academic and then in the business, to bring all of that back to the students when they get back in the classroom. But we can go to the next one. All right, so another cool thing we did last year is we hosted a job fair for seniors. This idea came pretty simply because everybody was telling us, hey, we would love to come and talk to your kids. And instead of doing different sessions at different days, we said, well, what if we just did one day where all of you that are telling us that you need people to come and work for you, what if we just bring those students to you and during a specific time and day at the end of the year? And so that's what we did. So a little bit different from how we're planning to do it this year. But what we did is we actually targeted a specific group of students to participate in a full day kind of job fair experience. So in the morning, students were actually attending two workshops. They attended a resume writing workshop, and they also attended an interview skills workshop where we invited industry partners to come in and basically practice these skills with those students. So we have a local group called Leadership Collierville, which is a kind of like PI, a local organization looking to give back to the community, but it's made up of a bunch of different industry partners from a variety of different businesses and different career clusters. So they gave up their time in the morning. They came and led students through an interview workshop, how to go through an interview, what are some do's and don'ts. And I think we all know this, but I was really shocked at some of the things they say they see all the time in interviews, that, somebody fresh out of high school will come and just put their phone on the table, and then they might check it once in a while in the middle of an interview. And so they went through the do's and don'ts of what you should do in an interview and what you shouldn't. And so that was a really worthwhile thing for them, which they had never participated in before, really. And then also students were able to actually create resumes and print them to have ready to go for the afternoon when they actually met with industry partners. So this targeted group of students, which how we targeted them, not to get into the weeds, but basically these are students that are not considered to be, they were not at the time on track to be a ready graduate. So they didn't have a 21 on the ACT. They didn't have the 2 episodes of an industry credential, the 4 episodes for whatever reason. So our counselors targeted them to be the ones that would benefit the most from going through these sessions. We actually had it open to students to attend after school, but probably not surprising, seniors didn't want to stay after school to go to a job fair. So using a lot of that data, we're kind of changing up how we're going to do it this year. But the middle picture is kind of the all-encompassing picture. We had partners set up kind of in an expo style U shape, and they students basically had a time where they would go visit a table, then an announcement would be made, and they'd move to the next table. But the caveat for the job fair was we told businesses, you're more than welcome to come, but the caveat is you have to have entry-level positions available for them to apply for on the spot. So they have to either be able to set up an interview, they have to be able to apply for a job. This isn't a, hey, here what we do, here what our mission is. This is, we need workers and these kids need jobs. And so this is why we're doing this event. So that's what spawned the idea. It was a big success. One thing we want to do this year is reach out to more students and give more of the students an opportunity. So we're working on right now at the high school. We just got through career days, so we had to get through that first. But now that we're through that, working on how we're going to open this up to more kids in the spring of this school year, so more can do this during the school day. Because as we all know, that's when you have to capture them, is while they're on campus and at school. And so we got to get a little bit more creative for how we can reach more kids, because it's not the ones that we want to make sure that every kid that wants to participate in something like this has that opportunity. We feel like last year was a little bit limited. So, but yeah, that's what you're seeing here. We're really excited about doing that again this spring. All right. So Cassie, I'll cover points, the first one and the last one. And if you want to talk about the middle one, does that work for you? Okay. All right. So really what our goal is now, so looking ahead to after we get through this year and the externship piece, and then working on some of those work-based learning pieces as well, is moving ahead next year. What we really want to do is expand our work-based learning, really get into the apprenticeship and internship game. I feel like we are making really big strides towards that this year. And really, a lot of this would not have been possible without the couple of years that we've had to build these relationships with our industry partners by bringing them on campus, and then now having our teachers go to their sites as well. So when we moved to this school year, we started a block schedule. That's really helped us out as a district for a variety of reasons, but specifically for CTE, it's fantastic. Over the course of 4 years, students are going to be able to take more courses than they otherwise would on a traditional straight 8 or straight 7 schedule. So that opens up room their senior year to participate in work-based learning activities such as apprenticeship, internships, paid or unpaid. Right now, we are working with FedEx for an internship for select welding students. Actually communicated with them today. They asked about how many students that might be eligible for this, and they're working through their legal team to figure out how it's going to work for them. But we feel confident that by the time we get to next semester, they're going to say they have internships available for some of our welding students. So, and they would work in their vehicle division as fabricators on non-moving parts of the vehicles. So really hoping that comes to fruition. We feel confident that it will. Obviously, we're in talks with Ford, with Blue Oval City coming. That changes the game for internships, I think, in West Tennessee. So we're looking forward to what that holds. Had a meeting last week with Methodist Hospital about a program they have called MAP, which basically opens up internships for students that are pursuing a CNA that also might want to pursue an RN once they graduate. And then had some great meetings and talks with Carrier Corporation. We're looking to add a mechatronics program next year. And we're looking to see how apprenticeships and internships for those students in a couple of years might line up for them, given the addition of the mechatronics program at the high school with our ISM funds, which I'll get to next. So the Innovative School Models grant for middle school is something that we're really going to focus on a lot. We really don't have a whole lot of CTE in middle school as it is right now. We have STEM, which is fantastic, but there's a lot more that we could do with career exploration. So we're looking at creating career and innovation labs at both middle schools, where we're going to have hopefully some virtual reality headsets where students can practice careers in a virtual setting. Since we can't build a welding lab, we can't build an auto shop, and we know that there are barriers with getting them to the high school to be able to get into those physical locations. So we're going to bring it to them in a virtual setting and let them really see what their aptitudes are prior to them choosing what pathways they want to do that they want to explore when they get to high school. So a big part of that in the context of this meeting is leveraging those partnerships to bring them now into the middle schools. We've been focusing so much on the high school, so much on what we can do to get them involved at the high school, and it's worked. So we're going to try to replicate that at the middle school level now that we're going to be adding career exploration courses and adding these VR simulations for students to explore careers. So really excited. The ISM is a game changer for exploring these new things that we want to do with work-based learning and apprenticeships and internships. So really excited about what the future holds because of that opportunity. But I'll hand it off to Cassie to kind of close it out.
Thanks, Brett. Am I off mute? Yeah.
Yeah.
So like I said before, we do this work, we've been doing this work in Collierville, and it's been wonderful, and everyone's been very supportive of it. But I think the reality is, if you're in industry, you don't really care where someone graduated, right? If you're a Collierville industry, you don't care if you graduate from Collierville, from Tipton, from Germantown. You just need people. So through part of this work, I'm involved with PI through my work at the American Public Education Foundation. That's kind of my official overarching job. And we got connected with a group that did apprenticeships in Arlington out here, and there was a really great opportunity for students, and we thought, well, we need to bring folks from Collierville in here, and we said, while we're doing that, everyone needs to know about this. So we had got a bunch of people from different districts in to just hear about these opportunities that not a lot of people knew about. And from there, a conversation just started with different superintendents in the same room saying, this was great. We didn't know about this. We really need to have more of a knowledge bank where, if someone finds out about something, there's more of a network where we can share this information. And then the conversation moved on to Blue Oval and, what does this mean for kids in our schools? And Ford, we love Ford here in West Tennessee, but there's been a lot of visits from Ford and a lot of time trying to figure out what that looks like. And they said, how can we work together more collaboratively to be able to respond to the needs of Ford and to the needs of our local businesses who are going to lose employees when Ford opens up and folks move over there. And so it just, that conversation just continued to the point where they said, we really need to be working together. Obviously, workforce is an issue that's getting more and more important here. And, how can we all come together in multiple districts to work on this and leverage our resources to share best practices, to create, learning communities for teachers that, Collierville, they've got, one welding teacher, we've got one automotive teacher. They don't have a network of high schools that have multiple teachers in these programs. And how do we give them learning communities where they can talk to each other and work together? And how do we make it easier on businesses? So if I'm an engineering company, I'm not asked by, 4, 5, 6 different districts to be part of their industry councils. How can we make that a little more efficient and streamlined? So that's how this idea came about, because we had done so much work in Collierville in this area. They've asked us to organize this group. We've got a few districts on board officially, and there are more in the area who are interested and I think are going to kind of join on to help start tackle this this workforce development conundrum we've got in West Tennessee that's just going to get more and more complicated over the next few years. So it's going to be a lot of work. It's interesting work. It's good, I think, to have K through 12, again, more present and more vocal and a little more organized together as a group. And we're looking at things we can do. We've got a couple lofty goals. We'd like to see career counselors in the high schools, working on that. I know Collierville is going to do that next year. And that they're going to just be focused on, CTE and careers, not necessarily preparing for the FAFSA or, college tours and things like that. Looking at, a job board that can be available to students who want to access it, because I always say the students, a 17-year-old doesn't go to Indeed when they need a job. You generally ask your parents if you need some work, or you go to Chick-fil-A or Old Navy and why do that when you can potentially do a job that's aligned with your CTE or program of study in your high school and actually get some experience that could be valuable to you in your career as you move ahead. So we want to do that, make it easier for businesses to access students earlier, just really extending that talent pipeline down further and making it easier for students to start working in their chosen fields instead of doing jobs where they get great work experience. Don't get me wrong, I worked at Baskin Robbins for several years and I learned a lot, but could I have been working in something that aligned more with what I wanted to do? Yes, and I think it would have benefited me. So we're looking at that. And again, just taking that knowledge of opportunities that students need to know about, teachers need to know about, and the big one for me is parents. Had a conversation with FedEx after that teacher externship where I said, would you all be willing to open this up and do the same kind of program for parents where we could bring them in and they could hear about opportunities? Because they had a lot of senior vice presidents come out and talk to the teachers, and the majority of them said, well, when I started at FedEx, I was slinging packages, and that's how I got into my career here. And just
Hey,
really,
Cassie, if I can interject for just a moment.
yeah,
First of all, I really admire the energy and the insight that both you and Brett have brought today. This has been fantastic. There's a number of reasons why we hold these study committees. One is to learn from the experience that you're having in the field and to be able to ask you questions and so forth. The other is to inspire, to essentially give you a chance to tell your story and to help others become inspired to do something similar. I do want to be sensitive to our time today. I want to make sure that the folks from Tipton County also have a chance to tell their story. So if it's okay with you, I'm going to open the floor for any questions. And it looks like Daryl Cobbins has joined us. I know, Daryl, this is in your backyard. So Daryl, do you have any questions? Let's start with you, and then I have a couple of questions before we move on to Tipton County. Let's give it about 3 to 5 minutes for Q&A. Daryl, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Great job. Really enjoyed the in-depth information that you've shared here, and it really builds on a lot of what we've seen. Just me in particular, going to Tipton County and spending some time there and looking at their program. So I'm really encouraged by what I see from district to district. One question I had for you, in some of our conversations with young people, students who were in sort of different dual enrollment programs and career pathways, two things came out. One was that they wish that they had been introduced to those potential pathways earlier. So I saw where you all start STEM in middle school, but was wondering if what did you call it, aptitude and interest survey, if that is introduced in any way, sort of at the middle school level. And then second question is, again, from these conversations with students, they were saying that if they had been introduced earlier, they could have sort of tried different potential pathways, uh, where if one didn't work out or their interest changed, that they had time to be able to switch gears and do something different. So just two general questions in that regard. One about, the early nature of aptitude and interest, and where you determine that, if at all, in the early stages. And then to what extent do students have the opportunity to change gears if they feel the need to?
Yeah, those are really good questions. So I'll take this one. So real quick, because I know time is limited, our students take their aptitude and interest surveys on a system called Naviance, and they do that in 8th grade. And they'll also do it again in 9th grade when they get to the high school level, but they'll do that in the fall of their 8th grade year. And there's no reason why we couldn't do it sooner. We are looking at possibly adding there's a variety of different surveys that we can do that are aptitude and interest with the platform that we use. And we're looking at how we can implement that sooner, as early as 6th grade, because we have that option for all the way down to 6th grade. So We're also looking at adding career exploration courses to all 3 middle school grade levels using ISM funds next year. And then also using the VR virtual reality option for students to explore careers in a virtual reality setting. It's something we have to go through to bid out. We have a pretty good idea of what would line up with what we would want to do there. But that's what we're planning on doing to expose students earlier so that they can have somewhat of an idea or a better idea than otherwise, not having gone through those courses or been able to use those that VR equipment to explore careers. And I think the second question, can you remind me of your second question? I had it, but I just lost it.
Just in terms of if their interests change, if they can switch gears.
When they get to the high school, yeah. Okay. Yeah, our students they do a 4-year plan their 8th grade year. And so in the same system that we use for our aptitude and interest surveys, and it's all tracked to the high school. Students do have to select a focus area, but one thing we've done a lot of work with the last couple of years is adding multiple introductory level courses to all of our pathways that are not dual enrollment. So students can actually try out classes their 9th grade year, their 10th grade year, and under a block schedule, you're finishing a class by the time you get to the end of a semester. So students actually can take multiple classes within one school year in a pathway or a different pathway. So even though we do focus areas, where students do have to select what their focus area is, in other words, in this conversation would be a pathway, there is option to move around because students are exposed to so many introductory level courses thanks to being on a block schedule. So those things help us out as well.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Great questions. Anybody else?
Jordan, is Bob Eby.
Go ahead, Bob.
First, let me just say, Cassie, you said you were at Tennessee Business Roundtable. You probably know Gordon Fee. Gordon and I are very good friends, and he said he spoke very highly of the Collierville program and says they've got it right. But one question I had to ask is, you mentioned that business wants a seat at the table K through 12. What do they mean by they say they'd like to have a seat at the table in K through 12?
Well, I think you might be referencing, I meant that K through 12 wanting more of a seat at the table at the workforce development conversation. I mean, I think business should want a seat at the table for education. I think that for a long time, you hear industry saying, I'm not getting what I need, but they weren't telling education what they need. And so that was my thing for a long time. I say, if you don't vote, you can't complain. And here, if I hear a business and I say, well, if you don't engage with education, you can't complain about the students that are coming out of it if they're not what you want. And so I've had a lot of those conversations where I actually think a lot of businesses didn't necessarily want a seat at the table for the K through 12 piece. They think that it's just going to happen and they're going to get magically what they need. And obviously that's not reasonable to expect. And so I think we do have to have those conversations to say, here is why you need to engage and you need to talk about it. I talk about it as a return on investment kind of conversation and not just like a community, wellness, good for you, you're giving back to your local school. This is for your business. This is something that you need to be doing. But I think K through 12 wants to be at the table. I think education needs to want to be at the table for education. And so it's just important to bring this both together. And I'm going to leave it there so I don't get the Academy Award playoff music again, because I could talk about this forever.
Thank you. That's a conversation Gordon and I have been having, and it's something that I want to talk to Jordan about, et cetera. But thank you for that.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Okay, great. I'm gonna hold my questions for the end, just to give Tipton County a little bit more time. Cassie and Brett, are you going to be on for the rest of the meeting?
Yeah.
Okay, sure.
Okay, great. Thank you. Again, I appreciate your passion and the fact that you are so engaged in this. It again, not only do you answer many questions, you also help to inspire others with your energy and your insight and all the stories and the advancements that you're describing today. Michael, you want to go and describe or introduce our next speakers?
Sure, thank you. So we are also excited to have the folks from Tipton County Schools and the Northwest Tennessee College of Applied Technology We were thankful to hear from these individuals when some of our state board members and staff were out at a day in the district in Tipton County, and wanted to kind of build on that and make sure you had an opportunity to share your work with a broader group during this conversation in the study committee, and potentially answer any questions folks have. But I will be quiet and turn it over to the folks in Tipton County.
All right, thank you. Can y'all hear us okay? All right, awesome. So I want to be respectful of time, obviously, but I just want to say thank you for, letting us be a part of your meeting today. We appreciate that, and we also enjoyed the visit as well. So I'm John Combs. I'm the superintendent of the Tipton County School System, and to my left is Dr. Bird. She's the director of instruction for our system. And then on the end there is Steve Macklin, and he is the supervisor over accountability and attendance. We've all three been principals, so we've kind of seen what that looks like in the building as well. And so I feel good about the team I have. Next slide, please, if you don't mind, Michael. There you go. So 48% of Tipton County school students do not go on to a four-year university. So obviously 52% of them do. And we're worried right now about the 48%. That's what we're working on right now as far as doing better with those students. We have currently a great partnership with TCAT. They've been amazing. Matter of fact, we can look out the window right here and see the building right next to us. So we can just walk over there and have a conversation. We feel really good about how we've been able to interact with them and they with us. However, I'll also say this, we're ready to shift that into another gear, and I believe TCAT is as well. When you talk about the 48%, we need to make sure we're getting those students where they need to be. And then you take into consideration that Ford is building their new plant 20 minutes from this office building right here. We want to be engaged even more so that our students are able to get what they need to not just be successful at Ford, but anywhere around Ford, service industry, everything else. So the next slide, I'm going to turn this over to either Dr. Jones, Amanda, I think is going to be talking about this, but she'll talk about the TCAT end.
Hello. I am Dr. Yolanda Jones, and I am blessed to be the president of the Tennessee College of Applied Technology, now Northwest. We are, as you know, a premier provider for technical education, and we are excited to be a partner with Tipton County Schools. For us, it is a game changer for our region. One of the things that you may notice first is our name just changed from TCAT Covington to TCAT Northwest. This was done with a regional approach in mind, looking at competency-based training along with how we can touch our students and prepare them for the workforce. So for us, dual enrollment is so important. Now that we can dually enroll our ninth graders all the way up to our seniors in high school, let us lay a firm foundation for workforce development. So for us, this is the key for how we continue to grow and train that next generation of workforce. So currently at the Covington location, we are being able to offer, I believe it was 12 programs. Well, taking the dual enrollment and looking at that in our programs, expanding that look into Northwest, we will now be able to offer 25 programs to our dual enrollment students. So this will be expanded, but for us, that just means how can we continue to grow? So working with Tipton County Schools, we are looking to see how many programs we in the future can place within the high schools so we can make our reach even greater. Next slide, please. Currently at the Covington campus, We offer the following programs for dual enrollment, which is administrative office, automotive, HVAC, industrial maintenance, machine tool, pharmacy, and welding. For these programs, they're offered at Brighton High School, Covington High School, and Mumford High School, which total about 65 students. In the next slide, you will see that we've added a new dual enrollment program called digital agronomy that is in the high school along with welding. So for us, this was the game changer. When we saw the number of students compared to the ones that were on campus, which was limited based on availability of size, because the majority of these programs are have a wait list. So how many dual enrollment students that can enter these programs on our campus is limited. So how do we change that limitation? We start putting these programs into the high schools. So you can quickly see that we have about the same number of students that are in the high school that we have on our campus. So going forward, our new focus will be how many programs can we put in the high schools to expand that leverage of workforce development for our region.
All right, I'm gonna take it from here. As Dr. Jones said, as we go forward, we just want to, continue working with them. We have a great partnership with TCAT. The opportunities they've given us and given our students, it's been wonderful, but we definitely want to grow. As somebody who personally just finished building a house about a month ago, it took almost 2 years to build, and a lot of that's because of the trades that weren't available. And when you pull in a lot of trades from North Mississippi and all over, when you have one plumber under the age of 80 in Tipton County, that's an issue. So we know that there's jobs available out there, and we want to provide those opportunities. We know, of course, Blue Oval coming, and we know that what that means for the opportunities for our students. So we're really excited about continuing to work with TCAT. We also want to continue to increase the number of dual enrollment classes at the high schools. We have a great relationship with Dyersburg State, UT Martin as well. So we do offer a lot with them. And then, as our friends from Cargill said, I think being a former middle school principal, just showing our middle school students what's out there. We've started some STEM and career awareness classes in a couple of our middle schools, and we want to expand on those. Definitely want to bring more CTE into our middle schools, and just let them know what's there. Bring in businesses, bring in our high school students, not just the teachers. Let the students that are actually participating, talk to the middle school students. They're going to listen more from somebody close to their age than they are, some old fuddy-duddy like me. So, we would definitely want to work with our middle schools a lot more than what we've been doing, and that's one of our goals. The next slide.
And as everyone knows, with the arrival of Blue Oval City, the great thing about our partnership is that we are able to evolve and meet those needs right now. Starting in spring, we will be starting a hybrid electrical vehicle program at our Covington campus. With this, we'll be coming training for our dual enrollment students as well, as long as with our adult students. And as the training modules come forth from Blue Oval City, we will be able to immediately develop those curriculums and put those out not only for our region, but for our high school partners as well. So we are anxiously awaiting what that will look like for our region, and we anticipate being able to respond to those needs very quickly.
So one of the last things that we want to talk to you about today is, as we're looking to increase our dual enrollment opportunities, we want to share some of the barriers that we are facing in Tipton County. The first one is regarding state course codes. And this is something that we spoke about when the team came to visit Tipton County, I guess back in October, that we see that oftentimes or sometimes the state course codes do not correspond with the course names or the descriptions from TCAT. And so that's something that we're having to work around. And 2 examples recently that we faced with that was the new digital agronomy as well as industrial maintenance. And if anybody on our team wants to jump in and say more about it, I see Miss Amanda from TCAT, she's shaking her head, but feel free to jump in if you need to. A second challenge is the course fees and supplies. I know just last week, Miss Amanda sent us an email from TCAT about some monies that are needed to help students, not included in the dual enrollment grant, but for supplies and things that they need for some of the dual enrollment classes. So that can be a challenge for some of our students. And then a third challenge is regarding work-based learning. Sometimes the requirements for work-based learning can be difficult for a district, for a rural district such as Tipton County. An example of that is with HOSA, some of our CNA students and the number of clinical settings that are required through work-based learning. That can be a challenge, especially post-COVID, because we can't get into some facilities like we could prior to that. And then something else that it's not on the slide, but I do want to mention is another concern that we have is certification involving some of our specialty courses. As we're currently writing the grant for the innovative schools, innovative model schools for next year, and we're seeing that in order to get certified, well, not in order to get certified, but how do we get people certified for mechatronics, as an example. But those are some of the challenges that we wanted to share with you today. You can go ahead and advance to the next slide unless somebody on my team wants to add to what I've shared.
You can go ahead. So this is just the final slide with our information. We tried to leave plenty of time if y'all have questions for us. You know, really, we're doing a lot of the same things that Collierville's doing. We're trying to do a lot of those same things, but we want to make sure in doing so that we address maybe some of the snags that we're hitting as far as like certification is one of those, and course alignment's another, because we just, you know, we're trying to make sure there aren't any barriers in the way of being able to move forward with what we want to do for the 48% that I talked about earlier. And I will throw this in too. You know, the big convincing part is not convincing the kids to do it, it's convincing the parents how you can be successful without a 4-year degree. And that's been a big sell so far. You know, I think we've done a decent job working on that, but they just need to be able to look at all these opportunities they have without having to attend a 4-year university, which is still a good thing, but it's not the only option. And so we're trying to make sure that we do that sell as well. Y'all have any questions for us?
I'm just going to open the floor. I have a couple of questions. I'm going to open the floor first for any other members.
This is Daryl Cobbins. I just reiterate my thanks and appreciation to the leadership there at Tipton County, Dr. Combs, Dr. Bird, and your team. Appreciate your candor in recommending some things where we can improve and find better alignment, and keep up the great work. Some of the tours that we went on with the digital agronomy program, the World Championship welding program that you have there, and also the nursing training program where they have a extremely high pass rate and placement rate. So keep up the great work and appreciate all the work you're doing.
And this is Bobby.
And this is Bobby.
Just one quick question. Again, I agree. This is excellent, and glad that you're moving forward on this. Did I understand you say that I thought course fees, the legislature agreed to pay for 6 dual enrollment courses or something like that? Or is it the supplies beyond the course fees that you're having challenges with? I just want to understand what the problem is there.
That's a great question. You know, Amanda, you can jump in here too, but it's the materials and such along with the course that are becoming an issue. I mean, I think, Amanda, you sent us some numbers the other day, and we're talking about like, you know, 20 grand when it comes to welding materials, as far as, you know, gloves, and I mean, everything that they need to do it. So it's not the course as much as it is the materials. That's a great question.
Thank you.
Don't
Andy,
mind,
do
I
you
have.
want to expand on that?
Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Okay, yes. So the dual enrollment grant is covers the course fee, which is great for our students, but it does not cover the books and supplies that our students need to be successful. We consider these to be an investment. Most of the books that the students purchase as dual enrollment students, they will continue to use after high school graduation, and they return to TCAT to finalize the program and earn their diploma. But now with the expansion of the dual enrollment grant to ninth graders, it is very, very possible that a student will finish one of our diploma programs that's a year in length while they are in high school. So the need for assistance with books and supplies is going to increase. The county government here works very hard, and if students receive free or reduced lunch, then the county government will help them pay for their books. But that does not meet, all of our students do not meet that requirement. So we are looking at additional ways to help students with the books and supplies cost.
That's very helpful. I would say that for me and other people probably don't recognize that added cost onto the program, and it does sound like it's pretty substantial, but that's helpful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If I could add one more thing, I just want to also say, we really tried to use the ESSER funding that we received in a lot of different ways. It was very beneficial. We spent close to $2 million that we put toward CTE programs during that time. We got a lot of new technology for our nursing programs. The plasma cutter, we got a plasma cutter for each one of the welding programs at each of the high schools. So that ESSER funding was very beneficial, and we tried to, make sure that we funneled the appropriate amount of that to some of those CTE programs as well. So if y'all had anything to do with streamlining any of that, thank you.
So I'm going to ask this question for, I guess, our full slate of participants today. The success metrics that you might look at after the fact, after a given semester or after a given program, do they include things like job placement within that industry? And if so, what percentage are you expecting? In other words, if a student learns how to, I think one of the examples given earlier was repair the conveyor systems that might be used at FedEx, how many of those students might ultimately be found employed in that industry, or maybe more specifically to the TCAT, if they're spending an entire semester studying a given course area, what percentage of those students are ultimately getting jobs within that particular industry?
I can speak just for Collierville. That's one area that we have struggled with is the follow-up after students graduate and really tracking this information. I referenced the platform that we're using for aptitude interest surveys, students doing their 4-year plans. We also do all of our career day events out of the same system. There's also an alumni side to that as well that we purchased for the first time this year and trying to vertically align all of this. So we're hopeful that giving students access to this after they graduate will help them with job placement, but also give us the ability to track it in a much more accurate way. Obviously, speaking from the CTE side, there is that follow-up piece that we have to do every year in the data review process. So that helps us. But that really helps us in terms of managing programs, not necessarily seeing which partnerships are more successful than others. We do think, like Cassie and I talked about, we think that landscape is shifting because of the demands from the workforce. We saw that with the job fair last year. We're seeing that now with real conversations happening about internships and apprenticeships with local organizations and businesses. So that is a focal point moving forward. In terms of what we would consider a success, I think at this point for us, any student that gets placed with a job would be a success at this point. I can't really tell you exactly what our benchmark would be. I think this year could be the foundation for what we expect moving forward with 23, 24 starting next year. So that's just kind of our standpoint on it. I know other districts are probably more far along or further along with work-based learning and apprenticeships. So, happy to hear what some other benchmarks might be for success.
Yeah, I'll say,
Like Texas. Oh, sorry. Go
oh,
ahead, Ms. Kathy.
sorry, I was just going to add that, yeah, right now everything's pretty qualitative. We're hearing from folks, but it's not necessarily, everyone that we work with. And that if we are looking at some platforms for, that job and internship kind of board software. And the ones that we are looking at do have a pretty robust like kind of data collection where it's not necessarily attached to, we're talking about a lot of things, privacy issues, obviously, but if we have students in there, even if it's just their first name and last initial, we'd be able to see the number of students that would be able to get a job through that portal. So we'd actually be able to do a little bit of tracking and kind of see what impact that and or kind of career counselors can make with connecting students to the job force. So hopefully as we move forward where that we'll be able to see some numbers. Yeah.
And just to highlight one thing Cassie just said, that career coach piece is going to be critical for us moving forward and being able to effectively place kids in internships and then also track that beyond graduation. So that career coach piece is.
Yes, and for us from the dual enrollment courses, this past year, the class of 2022, we had 30 students to re-enroll after high school graduation, and that's been our largest group, and we just are continuing to build on that each year. So we are seeing more and more students to come back to actually finish the diploma at TCAT, which is going to be very beneficial not only to them, but to our community.
Thank you for that. I think it goes back to one of the earlier comments whereby we emphasize that part of the value of the work that you do is the technical skill and access to the opportunity, and part of the value, as I think Brett may have suggested earlier on, was just going through the process of creating a resume and learning how to engage in an interview or just learning how to think about a profession, even if it's not the one ultimately that they choose after the coursework, but just kind of orienting their mind towards that objective is certainly valuable. We have just a few more minutes here for Q&A, so I want to cede the time. Are there any other questions from anyone on the panel?
Well, I wanted to, my name is Tashaka Hollins, and I'm with the Tennessee Board of Regents. I work closely with Dr. Jones and Amanda Heath, and I was contacted on last week to join the call to talk a little bit about how alignment between TCAT programs and the high school course codes, how that works, and overcoming some of those barriers, and basically what we're seeing throughout the state when it comes to that. And as we know that there may be some areas of opportunity where we may have a TCAT program that may not perfectly align with a high school course code. In some of those instances, there's a request for a special code that's good for up to 2 years that could be requested directly of the Tennessee Department of Ed, and there's a short form or application they should complete for special codes. I did see that digital agronomy as well as industrial maintenance were the two programs that were highlighted as potential misalignments. One thing that I know quite often happens is we will look at a course or a program name, because TCATs are program based. So you enroll in a program and your courses are pre-prescribed. They're not like traditional post-secondary where there are courses, you enroll in courses that may lead you toward a major or a degree. For instance, English or math at the community or community college or university. With the TCAT, you're enrolling in a program. So when you look at the program name, sometimes it's a, we do not have, for the high school, we do not have digital agronomy as a part of our program inventory. And so for a lot of schools, what I'll ask them to do is take a deeper dive, not only into the course description, but also the zip codes, Every program is tied to a SIP and a SOC code for TCATs, which leads to a job classification, and those are federal codes. And we are likely operating on the same federal codes. So looking at those SIP codes, and then also digging into some of the courses that make up that program. Digital agronomy, we already have a statewide dual credit opportunity for plant sciences, but that particular program falls in ag. So if there are ag related courses, plant science courses that are at the high school, that's where you can create some alignment. And then taking a look at industrial maintenance in particular, when you look at that SIP code or that SOC code, it's tied back to engineering. So if there are engineering related course codes that high school is approved to offer, or if they're already in the inventory, you're able to pick from those. So sometimes, again, it's not just looking at the program name, it's digging a little deeper, looking at the course description, looking at the SIP code, or looking at the courses that make up that program.
Thank you, ma'am. That was an excellent accounting of the current state. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Are there any other questions for anybody, any of our presenters today?
Just one comment, Mr. Chairman. I omitted Dr. Yolanda Jones in my thanks and appreciation, and I just wanted to acknowledge her and the contribution she made to the discussion we had in Tipton County during our day in the district. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Coppins.
Thank you. And I want to introduce, I failed to properly introduce Ms. Amanda Heath, who is our Vice President for Student Affairs at TCAT Covington. She does an awesome job for us. And as she mentioned before, our institutions are required by our accrediting body to have benchmarks. One of those benchmarks is placement. We have a completion benchmark, a placement benchmark, and a licensure benchmark. And that in its tail creates our success, because we are required to do those actions through our accreditor, and our students receive that benefit.
Thank you. Well, I'm gonna be sensitive to everybody's time. I do have one last question, and if someone could just answer it briefly, and then I'll close this out. My question is this: I come from the private sector, am an employer across a handful of different industries, and I see both opportunity. I also see at times the mismatch in the work that teams like yours are doing, and the work that people like me in the private sector are doing. How can employers do a better job engaging in the work that's being done all across the state? If you had to name one or two things, what would those be?
Sorry, we have to, our remote is on 2 feet, so it takes me a minute. I'm sorry. So that's an awesome question, but I do want to say this: it's going to take all of us. We need to do a better job of reaching out to our private sector as well, and we haven't really done a good job of that in the past, and we need to get better at that. But one of the things, I mean, I would love to see private sector engage more, like at our school board meetings, come to our board meetings. We even record all of ours and there's live stream. So, being a part of that would be very beneficial. I think a number of school boards do that, and you'll hear a number of things in those meetings that would definitely guide discussion and help with some questions. I know TCAT presented for us at the last meeting, and we had a number of questions from community members after that, which was great. So, that might be a good first step, follow on social media, all that kind of good stuff. But again, it's a two-way street. We need to do a better job of engaging with with the community and small business as well.
Okay. Thank you for that. All right, I'm going to go ahead and close this out. Michael, quick check. Is there anything else you want to say in wrapping up? And otherwise, I'll adjourn us.
One more quick thing that I thought of while we were talking. There was a comment made about the need to connect or communicate industry needs to schools, teachers. And I was wondering, as you're departing, if you have any thoughts about the needs from an industry perspective at the state level, if there are any gaps there, standards, courses, endorsements, licensure type things. If there's anything that you're not seeing at the state level, I would encourage you to share that with us as well.
Thank you, Michael. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and adjourn us. I want to be sensitive to everybody's calendar, and just to those who presented today, understand that these conversations end up being batted around among members of the board after the fact. I know that there's a few board members who will come back and watch the recording of today's meeting to learn and to engage as best they can. But these conversations and the effort that you're putting into this certainly helps to inform the dialogue that will continue among members of our board, and I know also too, again, with our colleagues at the Department of Education, who a couple of whom are on this call today. So I just want to encourage you to continue investing your time with us and sharing your thoughts with us. And as Michael just invited a moment ago, to make sure that you follow up with us when you see specific issues or items that we can help to address. We are very eager to get that input as we work to support the work that you're each doing. So thank you so much. I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting adjourned at 4:32 p.m. Eastern. Thank you.
Thank you all.